leaders, that when it comes to responding to various crises and wanting to lift up solutions and change and all the wonderful things you've talked about it, there's a felt tension that we live with, that if we push too hard, we might be rejected, or if we don't push enough, our own might see us in a certain light. And it's a great challenge, I'll be honest with you, that I wake up with every day when I've got friends and colleagues on both sides. And so the work you have clearly done or are doing seems to me that you have resolved that tension in one way or another for yourself. I'll give an example. When the George Floyd killing happened, I didn't think I'd have anything to do with that other than to mourn as a community citizen. And yet I found myself thrust in that whole discussion with the family and trying to help resolve some issues. And again, still feeling the tension that would come on how I position myself on which side of the issues. And I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but I wonder if there's a how that you do that, because you seem to do it so effortlessly. Or maybe is the right question, why do you not allow that tension to dissuade you from really being outside of the box in terms of how you think about bringing these solutions to the next generation in our community? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a deep question. Maybe the master answering that question I can see on the screen, Hugh McCall, because I think not only is he the founding father of Charlotte, but probably somebody who has navigated that. So, but better than anybody I know. I will give you. I think my and a straight answer on that is I think in life we got to care less about what others think. I think there's a wonderful poem called "Man in the Mirror," and if you look it up, it is from our generation or maybe older. It is around the only judgment that matters is the judgment from that person in the mirror that looks back at you. So I really don't care much about what other people think about me, and I don't spend any time reading it. And I care about what my wife, my kids, my dad, my friends, the people that I care, my friends. But other than that, so freeing ourselves up from that power from others on us, I think is the start. And it's easier said than done because it's complicated. Of judgment, it has to be, an ability to understand the other side, to have, true empathy of why someone may come on the other end, but then the courage to stand, for something different, not necessarily against it, but for something different. And I really, one of the things that really bothers me about our country today is everybody's shouting, no one is listening, nobody wants to seek to understand. And our leaders of our country, I just wonder what, people that once cared differently about our country would think about this. And I'm worried that, unless new leaders emerge that can change the tone of the dialogue, we're going to continue to feel this way. So maybe you can be one of those leaders.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ric, if I may, I want to follow up a little bit on Colin's point, because I did some research on your response to the George Floyd murder, the sort of introspection that you went through. Could you share a little bit about that and how that helped to sort of a strategic inflection point for your company, your organization?
That's deep. So I, like many of us, hopefully all of us, but it's not all of us. I was appalled by what I saw, and I was appalled of, that this was our country, and felt, really unsettled by it, but didn't think much of it other than unsettled about it. And what George Floyd taught me was that doesn't matter what you believe, doesn't matter how you act. If you don't stand against something, you are for something. And I realized, talking to a lot of my Black friends, talking to a lot of Black employees, that our lack of taking a stance against it was indeed taking a stance for it. And I was the first time I went back into the office, because it was, the beginning of COVID. It was that summer, and I asked our video guy to show up, and I wanted to be there alone. And I stood in front of the whole company as an all-employee meeting, and I just apologized to our employees for being quiet. And I told them that I had failed them, and as a leader, that I needed to learn, I needed to grow. And I made a very serious commitment that our DEI efforts will be as strategic as anything, and will be as measured as anything, and it will be a long-term investment. And we made tremendous progress in 18 months, and we're just getting started. The crazy thing about it is, I don't do it because it's good for the business. I do it because it's the right thing to do. But crazy enough, it's good for the business. Teams that have real representation and real diversity are better teams. They make better decisions. The one measure for us at Red Ventures is, do you feel like you belong here? And I tell you, it was really interesting. We measure this. Our white males feel like they belong less. Everybody else feel like they belong more. And it's about equal. And that probably is getting closer to where it should be. So I think it's a long journey. And I think organizations like ours, and like many of the ones here, have an opportunity to be kind of the change we want to see in the world. And we're early, and the problem is, and this is what I told everybody: judge us in 5 years. Don't judge us in 12 months, for good or bad. And we're doing an insane amount of work around our suppliers, around our writers, around our brands, around how do we take this platform, which to me, Red Ventures is built for our employees. I want people. No one leaves Red Ventures. People graduate Red Ventures. I want people that when they graduate, they get a job they otherwise would have not gotten. And when you're an alumni, I want you to be proud. And if you want to return back and you left in good standing, doors always open. But I want us, and what I hope one day is that there are leaders in other businesses, when they say something and someone says, did you work at Red Ventures? And that thing that they said was something around the importance of diversity, the importance of bringing others along in the journey, the importance of, treating everybody with the same level of dignity and respect. That to me will be success.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for going deep.
You took us deep. I thought this was a light conversation,
Well, I have to tell you, it's not lost on any of us that we are celebrating the birthday of Martin Luther King, who held companies and society across the board to a high level of moral courage. And I think it took a bit of moral courage for you to do what you did within your company, to be so transparent and so authentic, to move in the way that you're moving. And so you're a model to other leaders. And I wanted to make sure that our listening audience heard how you approach that issue. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Hey, Nick, I do want to just one more comment, and maybe addressing the Forrest Gump comment. Like,
Sure,
I promise you, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just wake up every day and I want to do the best I can. And the next day get the same. And there's no playbook for this. No one teaches you how to do this. And as a result, you make a lot of mistakes along the way. I think the most important thing is to own them. And, and to the good news is my company, I cannot get fired. So maybe that's unfair, but I make mistakes all the time. And it is less about making the mistakes and more about being willing to continue to learn and change. So that's why I joke that I'm the Forrest Gump, because a lot of times, I have all these employees asking me, okay, what are we going to do? And I'm like, if you really knew that I don't know, but I'll make a decision.
Oh, boy. Well, thank you for that. Kelly Little, Urban Institute. What's on your mind, Kelly?
Rick, first of all, let me thank you for being vulnerable, for being authentic, and for elevating humanity and not expecting anything in return. It's actually really enriching to see somebody not even just speak from a theoretical perspective, but also give atypical examples of what true leadership is. And so as I go from that, and just really want to say, like, we in the Champions initially had partnered with Johnson C. Smith University with the Mentoring Across Differences program. We will also be expanding that program in the spring, launching the Dorothy Counts Mentoring Across Differences program. So as we do that, you talked today about your belief in mentorship and sponsorship. Can you share your thoughts and beliefs around working with young men and women in a way that's going to help elevate them out of their conditions in that 5 to 7 years you're talking about? And I want to throw one more caveat to that, Rick. I know you talked about in one of your talks around vision, mission, values, but that big belief thing, I really like for you to share with our audience why that manifesto you wrote several years ago was so important to you, tied to that.
So let's start there, and I think thanks for the kind words, Kelly. I think that what you're referring to was, I made a decision that I cannot teach our employees values, because values are taught at home, and they're taught well before you join an organization like ours. But we can establish a common language of beliefs. And the great power of beliefs is that you either choose to believe them or not. And what it did was we set out a set of beliefs as the basic principles of how we hire, how do we measure behavior performance, and those beliefs are not for everybody. And for us, that has become a common language of how we behave. So instead of talking about values, which in itself, if values show you what you value, I think it's interesting. If values are just statements, then they're not that interesting. To me, beliefs are more like a verb, not a noun. And it is a way of behaving, not a way of expecting. So that's how, if you go to our website, you will see our beliefs, right in front and center. And, I must say that the beliefs have not changed at all for about 6 years. And then after George Floyd, we introduced a new belief, which is, we believe in being the change we want to see in the world. And that has guided a lot of very difficult decisions, even through COVID. And then we updated a belief. And that belief, interestingly enough, was, running up the escalators. And we realized that was not fair to a lot of our employees with disabilities. So we changed that one to, we believe that every second counts. So we are in a technology company. We're competing against the best in the world. We have to have an environment where we're changing. But the core belief of all of them, which are reflected in those two things, is everything is written in pencil. And, so when you come to Red Ventures, you should expect your desk to move every 6 to 12 months. You should expect to have a new boss when it's right for you to have new development. And if you're okay with that, if you're okay that everything is written in pencil, you'll do well. If you come in and you need certainty and you need to know everything, then you're going to really struggle. The point of that is you need to have harmony in what you believe. Running a business, running any organization is not about finding the right tune. Is making sure that the orchestra is all playing the same tune. Meaning the tune doesn't matter. You just need all the instruments in harmony. And that's what this language allows us to do most times, not all the time, believe me. There are plenty of times that it's not perfect. So back to your core question around mentorship and so forth. I do believe that every great revolution in history gets fought by the youth. Like real change happens for the generation that still has a lot more hope and a lot less cynicism. And I think we must invest in that generation, and the best way to invest is to reach out to them. And there are so many kids in our system. So be mental health, so be lack of two parents, so be lack of opportunities that fall through the cracks. That the best thing that we can do is give them our time. So I mentor a number of young people just because I get so much more than they get, and the more I realize that there are those relationships give me more. So I really believe in that, and I think organizations could make it part of who they are, because our biggest currency is our employees. So it is an opportunity that we all should seek out. And if you're just mentoring one young person and you're changing how they view the world, the ripples effects will come for many, many decades. So at the personal level, at the organizational level, wherever you can influence, I challenge you to kind of leave this conversation saying, who could I mentor?
Wow. Very good. Very good. I have a question for you, Ric. So years ago, I used to think that Fred Astaire was the best dancer ever, right? He used to dance with Ginger Rogers in so many movies, until some years ago I met Lonnie Guarnier, who unfortunately passed away recently, great scholar and legal scholar. And she mentioned that while Fred Astaire could dance really well, Ginger Rogers could dance well too, but she used to have to dance backwards, learn the steps backwards and in heels. So the question is, how have you created an environment for gender equity flourish in your company?
That's a great story. It is. You just have to commit to it. It's a non-negotiable thing. It is everything from, taking away the biases in the system that exist in every which way, and none of it is, or most of it is not conscious bias, it's unconscious bias, to investing heavily in, people from both genders, not just one gender, to creating policies and rules that level the playing field, to recruiting and mandating, diverse slates of gender and race. And before we hire people, we still have to hire someone who can do the work, but you have to be committed. I mentioned that you are, culture is what you tolerate. Well, we are what we measure. So you have to put lots of things around it and measure it. And then when you measure it, then it becomes visible. And when it becomes visible, people put energy to it. And it's been a long journey. We have an amazing leader in our organization who's been kind of a coach to all of us. Shannon McFadden joined us, and she had worked as one of the very senior people at Wachovia back in 2007, 8, and 9. And she has made this her kind of crusade. And I got to tell you, we from a gender standpoint, we are much closer to parity than not. I think from a race standpoint, we have a long way to go. And that's going to take us another 5 years, 10 years. But that's what I want to be judged. I want to be judged when my ride is over, do we stay with it? Because people just, they give up. They move on to the next idea.
Yeah. Well, Shannon McFadden has been a huge giant in the HR space for many, many, many years. And so I can appreciate the depth of your team. So at this point, I want to entertain some questions from our viewers. And while they're thinking about the question to ask, this is an important moment to spend with Ric, given his schedule and the altitude that he operates at on a regular basis. I'll just say, Ric, as a person of Latino heritage in the technology industry, where there are few and far between people of color, the numbers are just astounding that they're not there. Talk about that. What's the future of diversity in the leadership level in the technology space?
I think we just need to make the investment in the bridge. So, I mentioned the Johnson C. Smith project that we're doing, or the Pathways program at CMS, and teaching these kids technology. Then we got to get them through whatever the training or college is, and then we got to hire them. If I go and recruit, let's just pick the 3 Black engineers from, I don't know, Bank of America, that I really help anything? It doesn't help anybody. It made Bank of America's issue bigger, and it gave me, a fake relief that we did something to create diversity. I think the only way to do it is to invest in our high school students, in our college students, so that we're training and graduating a lot more diversity into technology. And all of our road to hire of our Golden Door scholars, we highly encourage them to follow a STEM path. Many of them think that being a lawyer is the right thing, or because that's the only example they have. And a lot of it, they don't know better. So making the investment where it matters, which is in, and eventually lowering it all the way down to younger kids, but it's intercepting those teenagers and then putting them in a path to embrace technology. That's the only way that you change what it looks like in a technology environment.
Mm-hmm. So one question was, today we have more young people of color graduating from college and university than we've ever had before, with incredible degrees. And yet they still aren't being hired in some of these companies and organizations. At the same time, we recognize that you don't quite frankly need a 4-year degree to be successful in the tech space. In fact, short-term certifications, right? Coding and other areas could really bring you the sort of financial rewards that one could be looking for in terms of their career. How do you balance that? How do you balance that?
I don't think there's a right answer. And I think that is a very individual decision. I do believe there's a lot of value on the maturing, the adulting that happens in college. College is not just about getting a degree. College is about a lot of, being exposed to a lot of ideas, being exposed to a lot of different people, learning how to do a lot of things kind of on your own. Is that separation from whatever your family life is. And for a lot of kids, that is as foundational as what you're studying. Now, I believe that people that go to college should be coached and mentored on the jobs of the future. AI and automation are going to create a massive disruption on the jobs that will exist. There will be lots of jobs, but the jobs are going to be perhaps different than how we think about jobs today. And I think we got to do a better job at predicting what that is going to be, and then getting our kids focused on in those pathways. The retraining, reskilling is going to be super challenging, but that's already embedded in the system. But our world will look really, really different in 20 years. Just the same way that the internet didn't really exist, started 25 years ago. The iPhone, was 11 years old. 20 years from now, what's going to happen from an AI standpoint and automation is going to change jobs. So this is a moving target. It makes it even much harder than your point. But I do believe that for some kids, getting on their feet and getting a certification and getting a job, just like we're doing with Road to Hire, young professional, is the best path forward. And some of them, if you put the right mentorships, if the companies act as, kind of the apprenticeship platforms where they're getting that support, kids got to get invested in more than just the technical side. And and organizations can play that role. I think one of the great things in America that it doesn't exist throughout the world, that exists in every country has a different. Germany has a very strong apprenticeship, kind of culture and whatever. But in the U.S., companies act as apprenticeship platforms. And when any young person says to me, what should I do? And I say, by and large, unless you have an amazing idea or you're in a hurry, go and learn on someone else's nickel. Go work somewhere, really learn about different things, gain, maturity, confidence, networks, relationships, which, by the way, is probably the biggest deficiency that a lot of our minority kids have. And it's such an important element. You know, belonging to broader groups makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So you mentioned Road to Hire when I asked about the success of that initiative, but I also realized that for those that are justice involved, who are trying to re-enter society, obviously you've got a strong HR team able to integrate, these processes, right, into really traditional processes. How do you make a path for those who are justice involved?
I think you got to pick what you're going to focus on. And, if I've learned anything as an entrepreneur is that you got to stay true to, your focus. And sometimes by trying to do more, you end up doing a lot less. So we have very focused on this 14 to 24 under-resourced, under-invested segment of the population. So, one of our favorite sayings is, we even have a conference room about it. It says, just because something is a fact doesn't make it a reason. It is a fact that there's a lot of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that need retraining. That doesn't make it a reason for us to evolve what we're doing to that. I think there's so much in the space we're in. And, I think in life, you're either compounding with virtue or compounding with, viciousness. And your learning curves are compounding. And the more you focus, the more you compound and learn faster. If you introduce a lot more variables, then you have all sorts of negative compounding. I do believe that the role of government is really, really important. Listen, corporations can act as speedboats, but the real funding, the real capital, the real ability to move stuff like this is the role of the government. There's a lot more than the government could and should do. The problem is the way that our politicians get elected and why they get elected and who gets attracted to run for office just all seems completely backwards to me.
There's a lot to unpack in terms of the role of the government that you've shared, right?
You gotta ask Hugh those questions. He's the pro. I'm the rookie.
Yeah, wow. Well, I thank Hugh for joining us. Hugh, do you have a question?
No, I'm learning. I am. I've written down several things. And everything happens through other people, and teaching people to get along with people of all types, you accomplish a great deal more through others than you do by yourself. And it's so simple that you would think people would discover that, but I don't know. I agree with what you said. I find now that I can only do so much. And the focus is really important. If I try to do too much, I do all of it poorly or not at all. And so I find that I can touch only so many people consistently. And I've been trying to touch too many people, and I've got to figure that one out. But you do have to focus. And I agree totally with everything you said. At the end of the day, we're going to make a lot of progress because we have to. Sometimes having to do something works. And for our nation to survive, we're going to have to pull together whether we actually want to or not. And so I'm a little more optimistic that we'll be driven to this at some point. Now, right now, we're not there at all. But I have confidence we'll get there because we're under attack everywhere from ourselves and from everybody outside of us. I mean, we have two madmen on either side of the ocean trying to start the Third World War. So I think we have plenty of challenges, but I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged that we're going to get there.
It's all about leadership.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Hugh. Thank you so much. Well, there's a question regarding Road to Hire. Can you share the progress of Road to Hire and what is it? What does success look like and how, what's that journey look like at this point?
So Road to Hire, just like the Golden Door Scholars journey has been changing and compounding. The things that we're trying to learn in Road to Hire now is how do we go from 120 grads to 200 grads a year? How do we, we're testing using our employers that are hiring, that are committed to hire this young professionals. We're testing Atlanta, we're testing Richmond. So, leveraging that desire where there's other offices for them. We're testing other topics, business intelligence. We're staying to technology now, but we're testing other topics that our employees have demands, that have jobs for. So it's very, very, very early. Although the program has been around for 6 years, my guess is it'll be 20 years when you would say it's kind of settled in. So we're learning a lot. We have about 40 employees working nonstop on this, everything from recruiting, coaching the kids, teaching the curriculum, creating all the mentorship after the fact, onboarding them at the corporations. So, I see Casey here on the call. Casey and Grantham, say hi, Casey, so you come to the street.
Hey, everybody.
So Casey really is who deserves all the credit.
There's a question here. Small business, one of the challenges of small business is accessing capital. And so there's a question here regarding what is your sense about investments, venture capital investments in tech businesses that are owned and run by women and minorities? What does the landscape look like there?
Nick, I don't know enough. I will give you an opinion, but I don't know enough to give you a thoughtful answer. I do know that, and I've studied this because we own Bankrate, and Bankrate is, we're trying to elevate our brands to speak more broadly than just our business models. But I do believe that there is so much systemic racism in our banking history. The way that this country really has been built by the government providing cheap credit to people. And when you provide cheap credit, you can then get going and get moving and do certain things. The reality is that cheap credit hasn't been available equally in our society. And, everything from the way that maps were circled when mortgages were given out, to even the GI Bill when soldiers were coming back, to a lot of historical things that, to this day, I think plague our system. So, my sense, and I'll give you an opinion on your question, at the end of the day, networks matter. So I do believe that having access to networks that will invest, but still the idea has to be the idea. And the idea has to be, investing in a startup that is, it has to pass its own level. But I don't think females and minorities have access to the networks that maybe white males do. Therefore, they don't have, kind of the head start and the momentum. And I think there is a role there to be played. And I know in Charlotte, there's a lot of, I know Hugh has invested a lot in minority businesses, and there's a lot of efforts that the city and the county have taken on. I think this is just the beginning of what needs to happen. Because that's how you create capital. When you create capital, you create opportunities. And when you create opportunities, then you bring everybody along.
Yeah, you're onto something. Some years ago, many of us are aware that there was a study that looked at social capital, and we were rated as an environment, a region that was high on philanthropic giving, but very low on cross-cultural trust.
Right.
So there lies the gap, right, that we need to sort of work through. Let's see if there's another question here. Let's see here. Well, here's a question. So, a lot of who you are, Rick, is online. You've done video clips, you've done lectures, and so forth and so on. Talk a little bit about how that plane crash, transformed you.
It was the ultimate gift. And the gift was saying goodbye to my life, knowing with 100% certainty that I was going to die, holding my arm, saying, I love you as we hit the water, and then being completely disoriented, not knowing if we have blown up or breaking into pieces, and realizing that I have been given the ultimate gift, which is a second chance. And I know a lot of people that have near-death experiences. Most of them happen in a second, or they happen over long bouts of fighting a disease. Mine was basically 2.5 minutes of taking inventory of all the things that I had done and not done that I now didn't have a chance to do. So I made a commitment to myself that I was not going to waste that gift. I was given the ultimate gift. In our evolution, we are somewhat unable to understand our own mortality. We are unable to accept that no matter how healthy you feel today, it will all change in an instant. Because otherwise, we would have never left the cave. We had to develop this crazy thought that we will be here forever. And I think you don't realize this until you get into later in your life, when you start seeing your life kind of going away. So I got the gift early, and I behave like I'm 100 years old. Every day matters. I say what I mean. I apologize if I do something wrong. I live with purpose. I live on purpose. I live with urgency. I enjoy things. The anniversary was Saturday, and I had the greatest day. I took a long walk with the dogs. I played tennis with my son. I went to the farmer's market with my wife. I was alive, and it's because I'm a constant reminder that I'm a checkup away from having something that takes this beautiful thing called life away. So that was the gift I was given, and that's how I live. And I don't hold negative energy. I don't waste time, because time is the only currency that matters.
Well, Rick, we've had an incredible conversation here, but that last response that you gave really let us walk through the DNA of how you think and who you are. And we all appreciate this time with you. On behalf of the Women's Intercultural Exchange and the Champions, we thank you so much for this opportunity. At this point, I'm going to turn over to Cy Pugh, my co-chair of the Champions, for some commentary. Thanks, Cy. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for your transparency, for how you're committed to help change things in our community. We focus so much. We have these difficult conversations on a monthly basis, by the way, with the Champions, but we focus so much on the things that are off or wrong about our community. You are a part of making those changes. And really, there are so many wonderful things that are going on. So thank you again for being here and just taking this time. I consider it a privilege to be a part of the Champions, the WIE Champions, and the co-chair with Nick. I am Cy Pugh, as Nick just mentioned. Nick, you always remind us that the Champions are aspirational in our intent. You got me thinking about how we aspire to genuinely lean in. We aspire to be men who get it when women lead. We aspire to establish authentic relationships. We aspire to build trust across race and culture. I always mention how Stephanie and the ladies that began WIE got it right with building trust across race and culture. And we know that that's really the secret sauce, that trust aspect right there. We can have all these differences, but if we're not working on the things that divide us, and we're not doing that by building trust, then we're creating a bigger problem. So again, I say that to say that, Kelly, you highlighted the mentoring program. The Champions, we do a lot of things, but that mentoring program is something that the women of WIE have been doing, and it's been really successful. And they've challenged us guys, to get our act together, because they do want to expand it. So I want to mention that as a part of our focus for 2022. We're going to expand the mentoring program. And of course, I don't think this is the wrong place to say that takes money. I think it's an average of $2,500 to support mentee during that 2-year program. And I remember the stats being 13 of the 15 last mentees, 13 of them are in a 4-year school. One is in the military now, and the other one has joined the workforce. So it's been really impactful, and these women have done a tremendous job. So our goal as champions, and we'll focus on this. We have a meeting coming up pretty soon. We do this again on a monthly basis where we tackle some of these difficult discussions. But our goal is to make sure we're part of building that up and helping our colleagues, the women in WIE, to help expand this program as well. So again, Rick, I'm going to pass it back to you just to have a final word, and then we'll get everybody out of here. Again, we appreciate everybody spending time with us today.
Well, listen, I'm humbled that you guys would have me, and hopefully some of this resonated with you. And we're all in a journey together, and it takes everybody doing our part. And I think life only makes sense when you make a difference for others, and it's the real purpose of life. And it doesn't matter what your position is; we all can do a little more. So that's what I'm leaving here: a commitment to you to make sure that I'm doing a little more. And hopefully we all do that and continue down that journey. So thanks again for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. You all take care.
Thanks, everyone. This was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending.